Well, what is up, everybody? Thanks for tuning into the Lakeshow Digest today. We're recording the day after a bad loss at home to the Chicago Bulls, 121-103. No LeBron, who's still being cautious with an abdomen injury. But man, we could have used his size and playmaking when AD was getting hounded with these double teams. This is a second night of the back-to-back for us, and it was also the second night of a back-to-back for the Bulls. LA got a really solid win against the Spurs on Sunday. In that Spurs game, THT looked incredible. He had 17 on his first night back, and he was the one with the ball in his hands at the end of the game. He was the one orchestrating the offense, and this was while he was sharing the floor with Westbrook. We had 3 or 4 really great offensive possessions to secure the win. It wasn't a perfect game, and we definitely gave up a large lead in the second half, which we're prone to do, but it was undoubtedly encouraging. But the Lakers are now 8-7, and this is the first game of a really tough week for them, and going into next week too. They're about to hit the road and play the Bucks. We got Bucks on Wednesday in Milwaukee. We have the Celtics on Friday in Boston. Pistons on Sunday. That should be a little easier. But then we get the Knicks in the Garden on Tuesday. So this is the start of a tough stretch for the Lakers, and this is a stretch we could really be using LeBron. There were reports today that he'll be coming back on Friday, and I hope that's the case. But yeah, we're 8-7, first game of a tough week. And going back to last night, really, this game had a lot of interest around it because it was the return of Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso, who we obviously know from our championship years, and the Bulls also signed Lonzo this offseason too. The Bulls started off the year about as well as you could have. They got a 10-4 record, while we're sitting at 8-7. My impression of this Bulls team was they look really airtight. I mean, they look like a team who plays to their strengths. That's not really something I could totally endorse the Lakers with. And they also look like a team who takes pride in being a really good defensive unit, something I also wish I could endorse the Lakers with, and something I bet Frank Vogel wishes he could endorse the Lakers with too. But looking at these stats, DeRozan absolutely killed us, 38 points, and Lonzo had 27, Levine had 26. Those are the main culprits. Just looking at the plus minuses of the starters, plus 17 DeRozan, plus 17 Bradley. I mean, this is insane. The starters are really what killed us, but Lonzo Ball, he got hot in the fourth quarter. He really started raining threes down. Zach LaVine was just hot all game. He was just killing us from three the whole time. I mean, sometimes DeRozan just comes in and kills the Lakers, and it's just a regular season game. We're not going to see these guys in the playoffs. And though I wish the Lakers played better, I'm not totally down in the dumps about this. And I mean, I'll get more into it why later on. But in terms of Lakers stats, the only bright spot really was THT. He had 28, but a lot of that came in garbage time. And Westbrook, I really liked his first half for us. So I alluded to these double teams earlier that were happening to Anthony Davis, and the Bulls were just hard doubling him every time he caught the ball. And AD was having a rough time with it, and something he's had a tough time with for a while now. Westbrook responded in the first half by being really aggressive, driving to the rim. So in the first quarter, we saw he made a couple bank shots, and he was also good at driving to the rim. Took a couple threes, but I thought that he did a pretty decent job of not falling back on his three too much, because we obviously know he's not much of a threat there. I like the way he played in the first, and we ended up the quarter down 9 or 10. I thought we were gonna keep it a little bit closer, but in the second half, the Bulls really put some distance between us. So yeah, I really liked Westbrook's first half. AD got double teamed hard, and that didn't stop at all throughout the game. I was waiting to see what the Lakers would counter this with, but they never really came up with a counter to these hard doubles they were sending to AD. On the Spectrum cast, if you were watching, Bill and Stu were having a conversation. Bill asked Stu, so what do you do when AD gets doubled really hard like that? What do you do? I mean, the first thing I thought of was you just get it to your shooters out. I'd like to see a little bit more Wayne Ellington minutes. Wayne Ellington, he had 21 minutes. He only had 3 points, though, so I thought he was going to have a bigger night based on his San Antonio night. But Stu said that you just got to get the ball out of your hands faster, and he was totally right. So that was when AD got the ball out of his hands a little bit faster in the second half. That was definitely leading to more opportunities. But they never really were able to counter that. And also AD gets tossed in the third quarter for some diabolical bullshit. He goes in for a drive, and the refs don't let him get his shoe tied back up before the play resumes. He says to the ref, that's bullshit. He gets a second tech, and he gets thrown out. I mean, they usually let the guy tie his shoe to get back into play. That seems like, common decency and common sense. But the ref was just an asshole tonight. He didn't let AD tie his shoe. The Bulls started to play, and he just tossed him. After that, the game was pretty much over. I mean, us making a rally down 20 with AD out, that's doesn't sound like it's very likely to happen. So yeah, that was pretty upsetting, but that's definitely a theme we see with the Lakers. They kind of let the refs get under their skin. This happened in the championship year too, but it seems to be a little bit more prevalent this year. If you've noticed that too, let me know in the comments or anything. Yeah, there wasn't really much room for a comeback without AD, but the level the Lakers are playing at now, combined with no AD, that didn't seem something that was very likely to happen. Going into this game, I thought we'd get blown out simply because I've seen how well the Bulls have been playing and how injured we are and how shitty the Lakers have been playing. And that's kind of the two ideas that have been splitting the fan base lately: injuries versus team composition. The idea that we're too injured to evaluate how strong this team really is versus this team composition is wrong. Rob Pelinka didn't do a good job with it. Westbrook's flaws and our lack of defense aren't going to be too big for Bron and AD to cover them up alone, essentially. I really empathize with both perspectives, but having LeBron back and having a wing like Ariza, another scorer and creator like Nunn, will ideally help on both ends. It'll definitely change the dynamic, but I wonder if that dynamic is enough to get us out of the West and to win another championship. If I had to pick a side right now, I'm leaning a little bit more negative, honestly, because, I just think of the playoffs. Your margin for error is so small, and a lot of our mistakes come from Westbrook and our overall defense. A guy who doesn't space the floor for LeBron and AD, and who's as mistake prone as Westbrook in closing lineups, just kind of makes me nervous. It presents an extra set of challenges in an already challenging environment, such as the playoffs. There are schematic ways to optimize Russ and LeBron on the floor at the end. We saw a little bit of Russ screening for LeBron and then Russ passing on the short roll and vice versa. We saw that a little bit in a game against Memphis, I believe, earlier in the season. But that's just one approach. They're going to have different approaches in the playoffs. There's going to be counters, and it's a game of chess. But if you have any suggestions on play types you think would work well with Bron and Russ on the floor, let me know in the comments as well. Looking at things as a whole, though, in this current 15-game sample size, I've seen our emotions take us out of games. We get too wrapped up in how shitty the officials are, and they've been pretty shit with the Lakers, honestly, especially at home. But this team, comparing to the championship team and last year where we got super hurt, I feel like we have a way higher tendencies to have an emotional meltdown compared to our last couple of years. We've always gotten upset with the refs, and sometimes we let them take us out of games. But our 2020 championship team seemed like they would typically bounce back. Our 2021 team last year, I still think we could have gone all the way, but I did think we were a little worse at managing our emotions. And despite that, I think LeBron and AD and our defense was good enough to take us all the way. That's a separate conversation, though. This year's team feels different. We have these big emotional meltdowns if things don't go our way. You can look to the two OKC losses that we blew. I think we kind of melted down against Phoenix and in the Warriors game too. There's 60-something games to work on these tendencies, but I don't know. This is definitely the least confident I've been in the Lakers championship prospect since we got AD. And that's because it's a completely different team. It's a new formula, and we're going to have to find a way to win. And right now, I've been wondering this since the first game: what's going to be the best? What's our best lineup? What's the best way to win with this current unit? And with having someone like Russ on the floor at the end of games who doesn't space the floor and is pretty mistake prone. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. Thanks for listening today. I think that's all the thoughts I have. So take it easy. I'll see you next time.